The group stage is beyond us. India they've begun well. Lots of talking points, lots of critical points as well. I don't know if my co-host and our esteemed guest all the way from Dubai will agree with that, but we'll see. There has been the remarkable story of Afghanistan, who've just surprised all of us with their matches, with their results in the first two matches. The Asia Cup, well, सोचा नहीं था कि first round में इतना interesting होगा, but here we are, and we'll be talking not just about that, because we have all the way from Dubai, like I already mentioned, Sandeep Gopal joining us, who is really enjoying the 50 degrees temperature over there, roaming around, soaking in the atmosphere, and enjoying cricket while he is at the grounds. Welcome to Express Sports Podcast. You're listening to Game Time with me, Mihir Vasavda, and my co-host Rahul Pandey. Sandeep?
Yeah, Mihir.
Straight to you.
Yeah.
How is it, वहाँ पर? I mean, are you suntanned? Is your skin burnt already? How much of lotion are you applying every day before you leave the room?
Lots of lotion, man. I'm fortunately not suntanned because I rarely get out. I mean, unless I have to walk to the stadium. I mean, there's the conventional feeling the city, roaming the city, soaking up in the vibe of the city. It's not happened here because, I mean, you just literally can't get outside from, say, 7 o'clock in the morning to 8-ish, 9-ish. After that, it cools down a bit. It's all right. I mean, it's all in the car. I mean, you walk sometimes I go to the stadium in a car, which is just 1.5 kilometers from my hotel because the heat is intolerable. Like, I mean, it's a kind of heat I have never experienced anywhere when covering a match or like otherwise. Unbelievably. August is generally considered the hottest month in the Emirates, and fortunately things will get better in September.
You mentioned August being the hottest month in the Emirates. Virat Kohli, in an interview to Star Sports just before the tournament, also touched upon it. Sandeep, clearly Virat has been feeling the heat, not just weather-wise, but also his performance. I'd like to ask the two of you, you and Rahul both, Sandeep, you first. The impression that I got, like, again, I always come with this disclaimer whenever I talk about cricket, कि my knowledge is extremely shallow cricket का. तो जो मेरा थोड़ा बहुत knowledge है संदीप, उससे मतलब मुझे एक लगा ये कि the top three, say for example, if you take the match against Hong Kong, you would have expected them to kind of go all guns blazing, and there were so many talks about this being in a glorified net session for India's batters. Clearly wasn't the case, right? I mean, KL Rahul, Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli, all three of them in a way had their iffy moments, if that is okay to say.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Completely agree with you. KL Rahul is coming back after a lengthy layoff. He was India's best batsman when he got injured last year. I mean, he was batting beautifully in test matches as well as in T20Is, and unfortunately got injured, and then this COVID break. So he's feeling it. I mean, he's just regrooming himself. Like, he's doing a lot of hard work in the nets. Even the nets, he was not middling the ball, most balls, like, especially when playing attacking shots. So perhaps the team management might have asked him, okay, you find your form, stay there a bit. We have other guys to do the job. I think that might be the case with Rahul. And Rahul will obviously come good, I guess, like, in a few matches, in a few actual games, he'll actually come better. But Rohit Sharma is a pretty interesting case because he's looked out of sorts in this format in IPL as well. I don't know what's happening to him. Like, and he's unable to rotate the strike. He's unable to get his big strokes going. Timing is eluding him. And then all of a sudden he'll play one furious knock. Like, I mean, he scored some 64 odd against the West Indies in 40-45 balls. I mean, and then 11 ball 20, 15 ball 30. I mean, he's been scoring it, but you expect him to score big runs like 60s and 70s and 80s. But that's not good happening. Like, I mean, sometimes he gets himself into a hole. I don't know what happened to the Pakistan match. Like, he was looking very tentative. I think Virat is trying a little too hard even now. Like, I mean, he looks to make things happen. He sometimes tries shots that he usually don't see of Virat Kohli. Like there was a slog swept 6 last night. I mean, yeah, which was a 6, but Virat Kohli doesn't play those kind of shots even in a T20 game. I mean, he's more like hitting over extra cover, hitting straight down the ground, and playing a lot of shots to the ground that still breaches the boundary. So little uncharacteristic in that way. Virat Kohli was like, maybe once he plays fewer games, like he also has played very few games this year, T20 games this year, like 5 games or 4 games. I think in that sense, the Asia Cup is good. Like, I mean, it's not as high stakes a tournament as the World Cup. So you can actually afford to experiment a bit, give yourself the freedom to bat the way you want and get back to form.
I mean, experiment आपने बोला संदीप, Kohli the bowler experiment पता नहीं कैसे होगा, but Rahul Pandey is here. We are waiting patiently for his turn, and I mean, we are recording from the studio for the first time together, so that's a nice, pleasant change for both of us rather than me in Thane, Rahul in Manesar. That would have been actually classic. Thane, Manesar and Dubai would have been a perfect triangle. But digress zyada nahi karenge. Rahul, Kohli, Rahul and Rohit, like Sandeep mentioned, like what's your take on everything that's happening there, especially with Kohli?
I think you put it in the right words, and with the first phrase, they are obviously feeling the heat at the moment. And we talked about this pre-Asia Cup, right? India at the moment are graced with the kind of talent such as the one that was in the 11 last night. Also, the ones who weren't in the 11 last night, including Deepak Hooda, who showed us this summer in UK what kind of a number 3 he can be for India. Suryakumar Yadav was a classic case of a number 3 the other night, and he has played at that batting position for so many games for Mumbai Indians and earlier for India as well. So the question will have to be asked at some stage or the other with the T20 World Cup fast approaching. Do India make the call on the top 3 right now? Because this is the time where you want to lock in on that combination as soon as possible so that the players know and have the confidence of the team management that they are going into that World Cup and then can focus on their performances on field. Hooda, I do think, is in the scheme of Team India management right now, but is not getting the number of games he should pre-World Cup given the form that he was in. I think with the questions of either of Pant or Dinesh Karthik playing, I think we mentioned this before, that question has to be only asked once you sort in your top 3, because they are the batters who face more number of deliveries or have the chance to face more number of deliveries than the low middle order or the middle order batters. So it's only right in a format where every ball is a decisive set piece to get that top 3 sorted. Because if you have players such as Dinesh Karthik, Rishabh Pant and Ravindra Jadeja, all 3 of whom didn't get a single delivery to play the other night, then you must have a top 3 that goes after the bowling attack right from the word go in the power play, because that should be a job of the opening combination early on in the match. When you have a batting order as deep as 7 or 8 in T20Is, you need openers who can add those 60-70 runs in the power play, or at least have that in mind that they need to add those 60-70 runs in the power play. If you lose 2 wickets early on, even then you will have 5 good batters lower down the batting order who can, maybe take over the innings. So I think these kind of questions will have to be answered sooner rather than later. And I think Super 4 is going to be the stage where we possibly will see a more locked-in combination, not just in terms of the top 3, but also lower down the order.
Sandeep, do we read into this a lot in the sense that Australia, say for example, have already announced their squad for the T20 World Cup, and over here, यार हम इंडिया में अब तक ये decide नहीं कर पा रहे कि top 3 कौन रहेंगे, whether our bowlers will be full strength, whether it should be Karthik or Pant. Like all these topics for our listeners who would have missed the episode from last Saturday, we've touched upon these topics in the point of view of the Asia Cup and then looking ahead at the World Cup. But Sandeep, to get an idea from you, is it just Australia playing mind games like Rahul and I were discussing before the recording began? Or is it just that India does have genuine issues when it comes to World Cup team selection?
See, when India will go with this top 3 to the World Cup, and there's no doubt about it. Rohit Sharma is the captain. KL Rahul was India's best T20 batsman in the last 2 years. And Virat Kohli, obviously, dropping Virat Kohli will be, it's an elephant in the room, which I think selectors or even Rahul Dravid will ponder. So, yeah, that way India is sorted. When you look at it, India is actually sorted. You have Suryakumar Yadav at number 4, you have Jadeja, Hardik Pandey and all coming at 5, 6. And Pant, Dinesh Karthik is indeed a debate, because I will go for Pant, definitely. He's a much better keeper and batsman than Dinesh Karthik.
That's a big caller.
Yeah, we should also consider that how much confident the team will be in playing these guys like Hooda and Samson and all in Australia. Australia is not a place where you can score 70 runs in 6 power play overs. Not against Mitchell Starc and Pat Cummins or against Naseem Shah and Shaheen Shah Afridi. It's not that kind of a place where you can just go berserk, or against Trent Bolt and Kyle Jamieson. I think batting order is more or less settled. It was always expected that this experiment spree was more a case of giving them a chance than looking at real options. Yeah, they all will be in the scheme of things, but I don't see India thinking beyond these 3 guys unless they are a dramatic Virat Kohli, for example, gets out for duck in the next 3 innings, or drop Rohit Sharma, you need to find a new captain also. So that is also tricky before a World Cup. And KL Rahul obviously has to be given the benefit because, as I told you before, he was India's best batsman the last year. So in Australia, even when you except Australia, I don't think too many teams have announced the playing 11, but might be a mind game for Australia. But these days, they don't do that much of a mind game either, but could possibly be also. But we are reading a little too much into those things. It's still a couple of months away from the World Cup.
Sandeep, just one question on that to follow up, because this was a major issue for India in last T20 World Cup's first two fixtures, where basically the top order were dismissed entirely in the first 6 overs, and the match was snatched away from India's batting and the team eventually in those first 6 overs of the power play. The absence of too many left-handers in the lineup, because we saw without Pant, Jadeja had to come in at 4. But if you are keeping Pant in the lineup, does he then play? Because Rohit Sharma had tried out in England where he and Pant opened the innings, and given that it only happened in a couple of games, one of them being one where they both crossed the team total of 50 inside those first 5 overs, can then Pant, because there has been some serious thought given into it from the team management, not just in T20s but ODIs as well. Can Pant be seen as someone who plays in the top 3 to manage that left-hand, right-hand combination, with Jadeja playing a little deeper in the lineup?
Definitely. I mean, Pant is a great option to open or come at one drop. He's that kind of a player who can bat anywhere in the order. You ask him to hit from the first ball, he can do that. He can hang around. That's an ideal combination, actually. Left-hand, right-hand combination where one guy can probably take a bit of a time to get in, and there is Rishabh Pant at the other end who's start hitting the ball right from the first ball. So that's a seriously good option, and which the team ideally should be trying out sometime soon.
Just one quick thing before we move to, for me, that's been the story of the Asia Cup so far, Afghanistan. But before we move to Afghanistan, Sandeep, we've been focusing a lot on the batting order and top 3 and who comes at 4, 5, all those things. But going by whatever has happened in the first 2 matches, especially with regards to the start that the team has or has not been getting, in the context of the bowling department, how crucial is that India gets that right? Against Hong Kong, bowling was rather average, too strong a word, but it looked like that.
It was in a sense average, especially the 2 new guys. Arshdeep Singh and Avesh Khan were a bit of flat. They were a little intimidated even by the Hong Kong batsmen. I'm not saying they don't have the mental at this level, but especially Avesh Khan will only improve. Even Arshdeep, one of the few left-arm paces that we have. But yeah, it might be a case of one bad day, or Arshdeep bowled beautifully against Pakistan, or just happened that. But then once Jasprit Bumrah comes back, it'll be a different thing. And there's Deepak Chahar also, he's a terrific T20 bowler. So India's bowling against Pakistan was superb, but not quite against Hong Kong, especially in the seamers. But I think it's just a one-off bad game. These guys will bounce back, and these guys should be nurtured also, both Avesh and Arshdeep.
Sandeep, since we are talking about the combinations of the team in terms of batting, bowling as well, the right arm, left arm combinations, especially with Arshdeep in the frame, he has been bowling pretty well for someone who has only played his first match for India in T20Is or any format for that matter in 2022. To have won a Player of the Series award in West Indies was a biggie. He was obviously a big hyped up name even before he made his India debut, given his IPL performances. Scores the batters from getting more and more runs on a consistent basis in those final overs. Do we then think, with Bhuvaneshwar being this bowler who has picked up most wickets for India since the last T20 World Cup, Bumrah almost a certain, given when he's fit, walks into that 11, do we then think of Arshdeep giving you that left-armer advantage as someone who can be considered a third seamer, apart from, of course, Pandey, who will be bowling when he is in the lineup?
Yeah. Arshdeep is a pretty option. We don't have a left-arm seamer. We haven't had a good left-arm seamer for a long time. After Zach and Ashish Nehra. Yeah, and especially in Australian conditions, in left-arm seamer will be very handy with his ankles. This guy brings the ball back in a bit too. He gets good bounce. He's pretty comfortable bowling at different lengths also, the full length, short of length, and then he has a pretty good Yorker. So he should be persisted with too. The third seamers competition will be pretty big, between him, Mohammad Shami. Mohammad Shami in Australia will be a different proposition with his ability to land the heavy ball, the bounce he purchases, the sharp bounces. So all these guys, and Deepak Chahar, obviously. Deepak Chahar, though it could be said that he's a little bit like Bhuvaneshwar. It's worth trying. It's worth playing them together also, because he's a pretty good batsman also, as well. Let's see, blows down the order. It's all interesting in a way. It's building up pretty well. We India do have a lot of options in the bowling front, so it's nicely poised, I guess.
Sandeep, India to hum baat karte hi rahenge yaar, but I think it's been about Afghanistan, right? The group stage of this World Cup. Brilliant 2 performances. The first match against Sri Lanka, they won by 8 wickets, 59 balls to spare. then they come out and hand out a similar treatment to Bangladesh, beating them by 7 wickets with 9 balls, I think, to spare. A young team, very exciting team as well. And just to kind of take out Sri Lanka and Bangladesh to top this group, I wouldn't have guessed it. What is it like to see them in flesh, especially given the context that's there, right? I mean, a year ago, we weren't even sure if they'd return to the field, let alone kind of come out and beat everyone. But it's been remarkable.
It's as much as a case of Afghanistan playing well as Bangladesh and Sri Lanka have digressed properly. I mean, Afghanistan cricket was in a bit of a chaos last year, but so were Bangladesh cricket, and so is Sri Lanka cricket. So I was not actually surprised by the way Afghanistan played, because they always had this bunch of spinners, Rashid Khan, Mujib and Mohammad Nabi. And batsmen also, more or less the same order. But what I was really surprised was the left-arm seamer they had, Fazal Haq Farooqi. He is making a lot of difference to this team. Like he's not stranger to teams like Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, because his best performance in an ODI came against Bangladesh. I mean, Bangladesh well aware of him, but still he's bowled well against Sri Lanka also. But still, internationally, he has not been that famous. I mean, he's another left-arm seamer with not very quick, I mean, 130s, mid-130s, but he gets the ball to swing around, he gets good bounce. So he has made a big difference to the team. And generally, Afghanistan have been playing in UAE for a long while also. Like for the last 2 years, this has been their home. So that familiarity also aided them. And there's an exciting bunch coming up. I mean, Afghanistan cricket these days is not just about Rashid Khan alone. There are other guys. There are other match winners. I mean, that's a great thing for Afghanistan, because you're not solely reliant on a single guy. I mean, there are different people to take up responsibilities. Even the teams are now aware, okay, you have to be careful of Mujib, you have to be careful of Rashid, you have to watch out for the Fazal Farooqi. So overall, I mean, it's a sign that they're coming up. They're progressing beautifully, and one day could be a top team as well.
Absolutely. And I think the big rise of Afghanistan cricket and how quickly they've just established themselves as not just another team in Asia Cup, but also one of the teams in Asia Cup above Bangladesh and Sri Lanka as of this moment in Group B. But they are also a prime example of what T20 leagues can do for these countries who don't play top-ranked nations so often, right? I mean, against Bangladesh, I think they've only played 8 T20Is up to this point and have won 5 of them. They're players who feature in franchisee leagues across the world. Rahmanullah Gurbaz, you mentioned Rashid, Mohammad Nabi has been there for quite a while. And all these players, they're not just performing at a particular surface. It's not like they're calling out opposition, playing at home surface, creating pitch a certain way and then winning series there. It's been an experience for them to perform across the world. And I think it's a big advert for franchisee cricket, isn't it, going forward? This can be the way for other teams who don't play top-ranked nations so often to prosper as well, especially in T20 format, where the volatile nature of the matches is almost giving you an equal opportunity to beat an opposition with just one good over or one good passage of play.
Right. I mean, just to wrap this, Sandeep, the first week has kind of flown by. You've been to India, Pakistan. We did a quick pod. Rahul and Devin did a quick pod after that match. But generally, India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, you expect a lot of people to kind of flock into the stadiums. What's the atmosphere? What's the buzz on ground been like for this tournament, given the heat and everything else that the crowds have to battle?
Except India-Pakistan matches, I mean, you could see a lot of vacant spaces in the stands. This heat is intolerable, like especially when you're in a stadium, when you are thickly packed. So many of them have kept away from the games. Even in India-Pakistan games, there were actually stands that were not fully filled, which you won't see maybe in the subcontinent or even outside, even Australia or England when they play. It's all packed. So yeah, the weather has been a dampener because it's too hot. But still, if not 25,000, 20,000 people will be there. But I mean, those 20,000 people would suffice. They make a lot of noise. They make their presence feel. So yeah, I mean, the atmosphere has been terrific that way for an India-Pakistan match especially. I mean, and again, I don't know how much energy they expend. I mean, first half, obviously, they are all energetic and fun. But second half is a little bit of, they are sapped of energy kind.
Imagine what the players must be going through. But Sandeep, we'll see. I mean, the prediction on Game Time in the preview show was that it will be an India-Pakistan final. We are headed that way, of course. Let's see if it stays on course. But yeah, thanks, Sandeep, because it's been a busy schedule for you over there. So it's a pleasure to have you and talk about the amount of sunscreen that you've been applying. So, aap karte rehna wo. I mean, I just hope that your skin is okay and you are okay when you return. And we'll get you back on the pod once, I guess, the Asia Cup is over, anytime in between, whenever you can spare some time. So thanks for joining us. Thanks, Rahul, for driving all the way from Manesar to Noida. And thank you all for listening. We'll be back with a new episode next week, and keep listening to Express Sports Podcast. Thank you.
You were listening to Express Sports by the Indian Express. This week's show was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar and produced by me, Shashank Bhargav. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it. Share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Podcasts and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.